Donald Trump has about a 2 in 3 chance of winning the 2024 presidential race, according to Polymarket's latest odds, with less than 10 days to go until election night. These odds are closely tied to the candidate's chances in key battleground states. Prediction markets like those on Polymarket have often proven more accurate than traditional polls. While polls provide a snapshot of public opinion at a specific moment, prediction market odds reflect a real-time consensus shaped by people who are putting their money on the line. This can produce a more grounded and realistic forecast of the election's outcome. Let's start with the safe states where either Trump or Harris have better than a 95% chance of winning. For Vice President Kamala Harris, the Pacific Blue Wall looks almost certain to stay intact for the ninth consecutive cycle, with Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii nearly guaranteed to remain in the Democratic column. We can also add Colorado, the fastest left-trending state in the country, along with Illinois in the Northeast. Harris holds strong advantages in Maine's 1st Congressional District, New York, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and the District of Columbia. Each of these solid blue states was carried by Joe Biden by at least 15 percentage points in 2020, and altogether they combined for 191 electoral votes, a baseline total that Harris can almost certainly count on securing come election night. On the other side, Donald Trump has his own set of safe states he's virtually certain to win. North and South Dakota, Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, Nebraska's statewide election, as well as its 1st and 3rd districts, and Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and South Carolina. Rounding out Trump's safe states are Kentucky, Indiana, and West Virginia, all reliably in his column. He carried each of these states by at least 15 points in 2020, and they combined for 122 electoral votes. Trump starts out with a disadvantage in the race to 270 electoral votes, down 191 to 122 from the solid states for each candidate. That leaves 225 electoral votes still up for grabs in 17 more competitive states, states where each candidate has at least a 5% chance of winning. Next, let's move to the likely states where the favored candidate's odds sit between 80% and 95%. Starting with Harris, her running mate Tim Walz's home state of Minnesota is likely to stay blue for what would be a record-extending 13th consecutive election cycle. Joe Biden carried Minnesota by 7 points in 2020, and prediction markets currently give Harris an 84% chance of holding the state this November. While Harris's lead may appear slimmer based on current polling, she leads by less than 5 points in an average of the last 4 polls, with individual margins ranging from +3 to +6. The absence of any poll showing Trump within the margin of error suggests Minnesota isn't truly in play. Harris is also very likely to hold New Mexico with its 5 electoral votes. Biden won New Mexico by 11 percentage points in 2020, and Harris is seen as the heavy favorite again, with an 87% chance of winning according to the latest odds. Harris's polling advantage here sits at 7.7% based on 3 polls, each showing her ahead by at least 6%. Back on our map, Harris is favored to hold Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, where Democrats currently have an 84% chance of extracting an electoral vote from deep red Nebraska. Joe Biden flipped this Omaha-based district by 6.5 points in 2020, and it's rapidly trending left, with a growing proportion of college graduates. Harris is also likely to hold Virginia with its 13 electoral votes. Virginia went for Biden by double digits in 2020, yet while he remained in the race here in 2024, polls showed Trump not only within striking distance, but outright leading in the final average prior to the president dropping out of the race. Now, Harris has expanded the Democratic lead to its largest margin all cycle at 6.4% based on the last 6 polls. The betting markets seem to reflect that positive trend for the VP as well, giving Democrats an 83% chance of holding Virginia. Finally, up in New England, both New Hampshire and the statewide race in Maine are also likely to go to Harris. She's got an 82% chance of holding New Hampshire and an 87% chance in Maine. These two tend to be the only semi-competitive races in this otherwise deep blue region, outside Pennsylvania, of course. But New Hampshire still went for Biden by 7 points in 2020 and Maine by 9. That wraps up the likely blue states, raising the VP's electoral tally to 226, still 44 votes shy of the magic number needed to secure the presidency. 270. Now, as for the likely Trump states, Let's start with Alaska. Trump is almost certain to win here with a 94% chance according to the latest odds, just a point down from entering the safe column. Alaska has only gone blue once in its entire history as a state, though Trump's margin in 2020 was the narrowest for a Republican in 60 years. Returning to the map, we turn to the Midwestern tandem of Iowa and Ohio, both of which are likely to stay in Trump's column. These states voted for Barack Obama in both 2008 and again in 2012, serving as key bellwethers during that time. However, they've swung hard to the right since then, with Trump winning both by at least 8 points in 2016 and 2020. Currently, Trump also has a 94% chance of winning Iowa and a 94% chance of carrying Ohio, according to Polymarket's latest odds. Trump also has a 94% chance of winning Maine's 2nd congressional district, a district he carried by 10 points in 2016 and by a narrower but still comfortable 7 points in 2020. This district is among the most rural and whitest in the country, both factors suggesting it could become even more favorable for Republicans in the future. Moving down south to Florida, Trump is heavily favored to keep the Sunshine State in the Republican column for the 4th consecutive cycle, with its 30 electoral votes, the 3rd highest in the nation. Florida has long been the quintessential swing state, having been decided by less than 6 points in each of the last 8 presidential cycles. However, it's now strongly leaning Republican after Trump expanded his margin of victory in 2020. In the 2022 midterms, both Republican Governor Ron DeSantis and Senator Marco Rubio were re-elected by margins exceeding 15 points, signaling an even more pronounced rightward shift in Florida's political landscape. Currently, Polymarket gives Trump a 94% chance of winning Florida, the best odds he's seen all cycle, aligning with the polling average where he leads Harris by 88.4%, with 2 recent surveys even showing double-digit leads. Finally, let's turn to Texas, the 2nd largest prize on the map with 40 electoral votes, which is also likely to go to Trump. In 2020, Biden won 46.5% of the vote in Texas, the highest for a Democrat since 1976, but while urban areas like Dallas and San Antonio continue to trend blue, Republican gains among Hispanics in the Rio Grande Valley have diminished Democratic hopes of flipping Texas anytime soon. Polymarket places Trump's chances of winning Texas at 94%, consistent with other likely red states. With Texas and Florida in Trump's column, his electoral count jumps to 219, just 7 shy of Harris, who still stands at 206. This leaves 93 electoral votes across the 7 pivotal battleground states that have been the focus of each campaign's resources this cycle. All 7 were decided by less than 3 points in 2020, and with the exceptions of Nevada, which voted blue twice, and North Carolina, which voted red in both elections, the other 5 states flipped from Trump in 2016 to Joe Biden in 2020. Moving into the lean category, we have 3 states with a 70% to 80% probability of favoring Trump: North Carolina with 15 electoral votes, Georgia with 16, and Arizona with 11. Together, these 3 bring Trump to 262 electoral votes, just 8 shy of the presidency. Starting with Arizona, the only battleground where Trump has consistently led in the polls since Biden stepped aside, he currently holds a 1.5-point lead, based on an average of 9 surveys. This trend is also clearly reflected in the odds, with Trump's probability of winning currently sitting at 73%. You can see a consistent upward trend here, culminating in his best odds to date. In 2020, Arizona flipped blue for just the 2nd time in 70 years, driven by the rapid growth and diversification in Maricopa County, home to the Phoenix metro area. However, Biden's win was razor-thin, with a margin of only 0.3%. Arizona's underlying Republican lean remains strong, as reflected in Trump's current edge in both polling and prediction markets. Next, Georgia, the closest state in the 2020 election, was decided by a razor-thin 0.2% margin. Similar to Arizona, its leftward shift has been driven by the rapid growth and diversification of its largest population center, Atlanta, where record turnout among black voters barely tilted the state to Biden. Now, Trump holds a 73% chance of winning on Polymarket, identical to his odds in Arizona, and again his highest since Biden stepped aside. Trump's polling edge here is even more solid than Arizona, currently at 2.2% across the last 10 polls. Finally, North Carolina is leaning toward Trump, with his polymarket odds sitting at 70%, barely within the lean range. North Carolina last elected a Democrat to federal office in 2008 when Obama won the state, but he couldn't hold it in 2012. In each of the last 8 presidential and Senate races, Republicans have won by less than 6 points. North Carolina remains consistently competitive, yet Republican-leaning, reinforcing its position in the lean Trump category. With 4 states remaining, Trump could secure 270 electoral votes by winning any one of the core Rust Belt trio: Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. These 3 states, which backed Democrats in every election from 1992 to 2016, flipped to Trump in 2016 by margins of less than a point and were pivotal in his win. Biden returned them to the blue column in 2020, making the difference in his victory. In 2024, they're likely to be decisive again. Harris needs to hold all 3 to reach 270, while Trump only needs to break through in 1. Before we dive into them, a quick reminder. Only about 20% of you are subscribed, so please take a moment to hit the free subscribe button below for more content like this leading up to Election Day. On Polymarket, Trump holds a slight edge in all 3. His odds are 57% in Wisconsin, 54% in Michigan, and 60% in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, Trump leads by 0.6% in the polling average across the last 12 surveys, with 8 showing Trump ahead and 4 favoring Harris, though all are within the margin of error. This marks Trump's longest lead over Harris since late August, suggesting a clear momentum shift in his favor in this crucial state. Meanwhile, in Michigan, Trump leads by an even narrower margin of 0.2% based on the last 9 surveys. Again, this is a concerning trend for the Harris campaign, as she had previously led Trump by at least a point or 2 since late July. Finally, looking at Wisconsin, the real clear polling average shows Trump with an identical lead at 0.2%, with 6 of the 9 polls included here showing the 2 candidates exactly tied. While Michigan is generally seen as the most fundamentally Democratic of the 3 Rust Belt states, Wisconsin's demographics lean more Republican. Wisconsin is whiter, more rural, and has a lower share of college-educated voters, making it a natural point of strength for Trump, especially if he overperforms with the white working class, as he did in 2016 and 2020. Notably, Trump overperformed the final polling averages here in Wisconsin by more than 6.5 points in both of his previous campaigns. Pennsylvania, on the other hand, is widely seen as the most likely tipping point state. Nate Silver gives it a 32% chance of determining the election outcome, double that of Michigan. If Trump wins Pennsylvania, his chances of reaching 270 increase significantly. Harris, on the other hand, would need to win every remaining battleground and flip a Trump-leaning state to remain competitive. Yet based on the latest prediction market odds, Trump is now narrowly favored in Wisconsin, lifting him to 291 electoral votes, comfortably over the 270 threshold needed to secure a second non-consecutive term. Meanwhile, Michigan remains in the toss-up column, with neither candidate holding a better than 55% chance of winning. As for the final state on our map, Nevada, with its 6 electoral votes, Trump is again favored on Polymarket with a 64% chance of winning. That means it also gets placed in the tilt Republican category, lifting Trump's final projected tally up to 297 votes, leading Harris's 226, with 15 votes in Michigan in the toss-up column. As always, feel free to let me know in the comments what you think of this map and suggest any other videos or topics you'd like to see in the future. That does it for today's video, though. Make sure to subscribe to my channel down below, and please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. You can check out more content from my channel here, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.